read you an excerpt from a book called Language Proof Logic. So, we're going to be reading about the Gödel's incompleteness theorem. And it's the last subchapter of the book. So, completeness versus incompleteness. I'll probably be reading from paper because I have a printed version here. A theorem showing the existence of non-standard models of arithmetic shows a kind of incompleteness of the first order language. There is, however, a far deeper form of incompleteness that was discovered by Gödel a few years after he proved the completeness theorem. This is the famous result known as Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Students are sometimes puzzled by the fact that Gödel first proved something called the completeness theorem, but then turned around and proved the incompleteness theorem. Couldn't he make up his mind? Actually, though, the senses of completeness involved in these two theorems are quite different. Recall that the completeness theorem tells us that our formal rules of proof adequately capture first-order consequence. The incompleteness theorem, by contrast, involves a notion of formal completeness, introduced earlier. Remember that a theory, descripted, is said to be formally complete if for any sentence S of its language, S or not S, is provable from T. We know, by soundness and completeness, that this is equivalent to saying that either S or not S is a first-order consequence of T. Could I expand a little bit about it? So, if a sentence S is provable from T, then it's equivalent to say that S is a first-order consequence of T, because we know that if S is provable, then it is an FO consequence because of the soundness theorem. Everything that we can prove is actually first-order consequence. And also, if going to the other direction, S is a first-order consequence of T, and due to Gödel's completeness theorem that we have just mentioned, S is provable from T. So, in the early part of the 20th century, logicians were analyzing mathematics by looking at axiomatic theories like P-n arithmetic and formal proof systems like F, which is the basic deductive proof system that they are using in this course. The aim was to come up with a formally complete axiomatization of arithmetic, one that allowed us to prove all and only the sentences that were true of the natural numbers. Okay, so they were analyzing mathematics considered probably several theories, in particular Peano arithmetic as a set of axioms and the formal proof systems, which are actually quite natural in a sense, quite logical, intuitive, like that one system F. And they were striving for coming up with a formally complete axiomatization of arithmetic. Which sense of formal completeness is meant in this sentence? I think the latter one. So, one that allowed us to prove all and only the sentences that were true of the natural number. This part was an ambitious project that came to be known as Hilbert's program after its main proponent, David Hilbert. By the early 1930s, a great deal of progress had been made in Hilbert's program. All the known theorems about arithmetic had been shown to follow from relatively simple axiomatizations like Peano arithmetic. Furthermore, the logician Moses Presburger had shown that any true sentence of the language not mentioning multiplication could be proven from the relevant Peano axioms. Gödel's incompleteness theorem showed the positive progress showed the incompleteness theorem that the positive progress was misleading, and that in fact the goal of Hilbert's program could never be accomplished. A special case of Gödel's theorem can be stated as follows. A theorem, Gödel's incompleteness, a theorem for PA, which stands for Peano arithmetic. Peano arithmetic is not formally complete. The proof of this theorem, which they are going to describe below, shows that the result applies far more broadly than just to Peano's axiomatization, or just to the particular formal system F. In fact, it shows that no reasonable extension of either of these will give you a formally complete theory of arithmetic in a sense of reasonable. It can be made precise. So, in a sense of reasonable, it can be made precise. Okay. We want to have a formally complete theory of arithmetic, no matter how we extend any of the formal systems or axiomata. What do they mean by the sense of quote-unquote reasonable? It can be made precise. Tell me if you know. Try to give you a general idea how the proof goes. Key insight is that any system of symbols can be represented in a coordinate scheme, like Morse code, where a sequence of dots and dashes, or equivalently zeros and ones, is used to represent any individual symbol of the system. With a carefully designed coding system, any string of symbols can be represented by a string of zeros and ones. Clearly. Probably even this book can be, or any other book. And I guess it's not a particularly large code that is gonna be necessary for it. Maybe an ASCII or a Unicode encoding is gonna be enough for this purpose. We'll be able to represent any string of symbols by a string of zeros and ones, but we can think of such a sequence as denoting a number in binary notation. Hence, we can use natural numbers to code strings of our basic symbol. That seems so mind-blowing, like we are literally like stepping over the semantic, all of the semantics of our existence, and start to focusing on a particular representation of it that we have chosen. That's interesting. So we can use natural numbers to code strings of our basic symbol. The first thing Gödel established was that So the first thing Gödel has established was that all of the important syntactic notions of first-order logic can be represented in the language of piano arithmetic. Which are those important notions of first-order logic? Let's take a closer look. And this paragraph is called representability. You see, we talked about the coding system, the idea of proof, about the title of the theorem, about the theorem statement, I'm sorry, about the Hilbert's program. I like how this is described in a book by Charles Petzold called Turing, Annotated Turing. I read it, a part of it in Russian, quite a big part, and I was very, very emotionated when I was reading about the thing, because he described it so that we started to feel an empathy, feel ourselves like we are a part of this program, like we also think and feel with those people who lived like 100 and a little bit of extra years ago, about their hopes and delusions and achievements. So it really induces a frisson kind of feeling, or goosebumps. So what do they want us to know about representability? So Gödel established that all of the important syntactic notions of first-order logic can be represented in the language of piano arithmetic. For example, the following predicates: N is the code of a Booth well-formed formula. N is the code of a sentence. N is the code of an axiom of piano arithmetic. Okay, I guess I can just encode the arithmetic, the axioms of the axiomata of arithmetic by numbers, sentences number by 7 particular numbers or 6 particular numbers. I don't know. I don't know how many of them there are. I guess 7, so 7 numbers. That's easy. What is a woof? Woof is like a formula, like A and B, A or B, or something like that. What is a sentence? It's something that can be answered like, is it true or is it false? So, N and M are codes of sentences, the second of which follows from the first by an application of conjunction elimination. It's like conjunction elimination is when we have a sentence A and B, and we can deduce A from it, like I'm Caucasian and I speak Russian. Implies that I speak Russian because I can just throw away one of the conjuncts and just assert either of them. Okay? Now, N is the code of a proof in F, which is also encoded by a certain amount of strings, okay? And is the code of a proof of this sentence whose code is M. Well, that's a bit of a mouthful. Of a proof of this sentence. That's interesting. I guess good Godel had a really unconstrained, unrestrained sort of imagination and ability to construct things, all of those ideas, to imagine them. It all requires quite a bit of that freedom, I suppose, and maybe a sort of unchainity, of being unchained, being unconstrained, being like going where you want to go. So, when we say these predicates are representable in P&O arithmetic, we mean something fairly strong that the axioms and rules of proof allow us to prove all and only the true instances of these predicates. I didn't get that, okay? So if P is a proof of S and N and M are their codes, then the former version of the last sentence on our list would actually be a first order consequence of the P&O axioms. What is the last sentence on our list? Would be actually a first order consequence of the P&O axiomata. Which list? What are you talking about? I didn't quite get it. Say we have a wow. I have no idea. That's scary. Okay, so if I don't understand how it works, I'd better stick to what does it do. So let's stick to what does it do. So, we asserted the predicates are representable in P&O arithmetic. Those predicates. And so the axioms and rules of proof allow us to prove only the true instances of predicates such as N is the code of a wolf. Okay? So, only if N is really the code of a wolf, we are able to prove it. N is the code of a sentence, so we can positively prove something like that via our rules of proof and the axiomata. And is the code of an axiom of P&O arithmetic. Once again, we can prove this sentence only if it is true. And this is actually quite an assertion. So he told us that all of the important syntactic notions can be represented, and that is the kind of a strong sense that we imply in the word to represent. So, to be represented in the language of P&O arithmetic means that can I have no idea. Okay, so if P is a proof of S and N and M, are they a code? Code of what? The code of a proof, the code of P, and M is the code of S, and the formal version of the last sentence in our list. Now that list, N is the code of a proof of the sentence whose code is M, would actually be a first order consequence of the P&O axiomata. What an idea. A lot of careful work has to be done to show that these notions are representable in P&O arithmetic. Work that is very similar to what you have to do to implement a system like that on a computer. Perhaps Gödel was the world's first real hacker, but it's possible and fairly routine once you get the hang of it. Gödel's second key insight was that it's possible to get sentences that express facts about themselves relative to the coding scheme, and this is known as the diagonal lemma. This lemma states that for any wolf P of X, it's called the diagonal lemma, with a single free variable, it's possible to find a number N that codes the sentence P of N, asserting that N satisfies P of X. What the heck? Oh, what a mouthful once again. I don't even want to read it once again. That's a really sort of something that is difficult to digest. I guess we need some time. So, in other words, P of N can be thought of as asserting, and this lemma states that we are positively able to find a number. So, this sentence has the property expressed by P. That's gonna be P of N. So, we There might not be a lot of numbers. There might be just one number. That's all that the diagonal lemma asserts. But we are able to find at least one number such that it codes the sentence P of n. Okay? Okay. So, depending on what property P expresses, some of this will be true, some of those would be false, will be false. For example, the formal versions of this sentence is a well-formed formula, and this sentence has no free variables are true, while the formal versions of this sentence is a proof, and this sentence is an axiom of P&R arithmetic are false. And now consider the formal version of the following sentence, whose existence the diagonal lemma guarantees. This sentence is not provable from the axioms of P&R arithmetic. This sentence is not provable from the axioms of P&R arithmetic. This sentence, the one above, not this one, is called G after Gödel. Let's show that G is true, but not provable in PA. So we are going in the way of the indirect proof. We want to show that G is true. But not provable. So let's suppose that G is not true. Then, given that what it claims, it must be provable from the axioms of P&R arithmetic. But since the axioms of P&R arithmetic are true and F is sound, and anything provable from it must be true, so it's gonna be true, so that contradicts our assumption that it was false. So G is true. Now let's show that it's not provable. As G is true, it asserts that it's not provable from the axioms of P&R arithmetic. Wow, what a marvel. I think I only to get my mind around it. But anyways, Gödel's incompleteness theorem follows immediately from this. We have found a true sentence in the language of P&R arithmetic that is not provable from the P&R axiomata. What's more, the negation of this sentence cannot be provable again, because the provable consequences of the P&R axioms are all true. What's going to be the negation that this sentence is provable from the axioms of P&R arithmetic? The negation of this sentence is that this sentence is provable. Well, okay. It's going to be a contradiction immediately, as I understand it. So if it's provable that this sentence is not provable from the axioms of P&R arithmetic, we got a contradiction immediately. So P&R arithmetic is not formally complete. Of course, there is equivalence G. We could always add it, or something that would allow us to prove it as a new axiom. The problem is that these attempts to strengthen our axioms do not escape Gödel's argument. Since the argument does not depend on the weakness of Peano arithmetic, but on its strength. As long as the axioms of the extended system T are true. What is the system T? Any kind of system. And the predicate N encodes an axiom of T is representable in T. Gödel's whole argument can be repeated, generating yet another true sentence. It is unprovable in the extended system. And now, Gödel's incompleteness result is one of the most important theorems in logic, one whose consequences are still being explored today. We urge the interested reader to explore it further. Detailed proofs of Gödel's theorem can be found in many advanced textbooks in logic, including Smiljan's Gödel's incompleteness theorem, and Mathematical Introduction to Logic, and Poulos and Jeffrey